What's going on, everyone? I'm at my Crystal Beach property today. I thought we should talk about flipping because that is an option for us right now, because like I said in my previous video, we were looking to do a bed and breakfast here, but depending on the city and their feedback, it may or may not play out that way. I just gotta see. It may make more sense just to do a flip with this property. So I kind of wanted to get into the basics. If you're not familiar, flipping is when you buy a property, ideally run down or with enough opportunity for you to add value through rentals, and then you give it that increase in value and put it back on the market where someone's willing to pay for that increase in value with a higher price, and obviously you profit off the difference in between. So it seems pretty simple in theory when you just talk about it like that. And thanks to shows like on channels like HGTV and other videos you see of flippers and just content, it seems like it's just this like nice, cool thing to get into and you can make a lot of money. And you can make a lot of money, but there are a lot of other challenges and I guess details that go into the actual flip and what it takes. So I kind of wanted to talk about that stuff more in detail and get into the nitty-gritty of things. All right, so flipping is a multi-skill activity, you could say, I guess, if that's one way to put it. It requires deal finding, deal funding, appraisal, project management, and obviously disposition of the asset. Once you're done, you have to sell it. So there's a lot of different moving parts that actually go into flipping. All right, so if there's one thing you should take away from this video, it's that there's a golden rule with flipping, even with buying really solid assets, but with flipping, it's even more important. It's buying low, I mean, well below market value. So that's the golden rule. As long as you can do that, not only are you gonna be profitable, but you can afford to make mistakes, because if you have enough of, I guess, enough room in between what you're buying for, what you can sell, like there's enough opportunity for you if you make mistakes, if you have to go higher end on the finishes when you're renovating the place, if you have unexpected costs like for lending, etc. So just keep that in mind, because that's always gonna save you no matter what, and it's gonna make you the most money. Some of the costs that I'm talking about outside of doing just the purchase and the rental for a flip property, obviously the legal costs that you have in any purchase, land transfer fees, legal lawyer fees. Aside from that, you're gonna have your carrying costs, like your mortgage, the interest you're paying, and mind you, with flipping, interest can really vary, because if you're doing flipping at scale, or even if you're doing like a really rundown property, you're not gonna get standard financing. So your interest rate could be up to like 10–15% sometimes. So these are costs that people don't account for. And with mortgages like that, you have to pay a lender fee of 2% up front. So on a $500,000 property, that's 10 grand that you're just paying right when you buy the property. Aside from that, sometimes depending on the lender, there could be appraisal costs, etc. So all these things do add up, and they're separate from the rental and the purchase. All right, so let's take a simple example of a $500,000 property. So you pick it up for 500K, rentals are 50K, the after repair value is 650. So that gives you about 100 grand between what you're in for and what you're gonna get. So it seems like you're gonna make 100K profit, but it's not that simple. So you're gonna need to account for all those fees I was talking about, the selling costs, because remember, when you're selling, you're probably gonna pay 4 to 5% to realtors just to sell the property. So now accounting for all the legal fees, the private lending fees, the realtor selling costs, that brings you up to another 60K on top of what you're paying. So that's 60K of soft costs, just fees for legals, selling, etc. So now that 550 quickly turns into $610,000. So now what's left is about 40 grand. Still not that bad, right? But to be honest with you, it just really depends on you. For some people, that doesn't cut it. They need to make a lot more money than that. So it just really depends on what you're looking for, but you gotta really be careful when you're doing cost calculations, because there's all these fees, and they do vary from deal to deal. In some deals, if they're really bad and no one wants to lend, you might be paying outrageous interest fees and maybe even a higher lender fee, maybe 3%, maybe more. So just keep that in mind. All right, so another thing that people don't consider that's actually very, I would say, draining and can take a lot of your time and cause you stress is project management. So usually in a big project, you could just hire someone and pay them the extra 20–30% that they command, right? General contractors, just for managing your project, finding all the tradespeople, hiring it out, managing your project, checking in, making sure everything's up to quality and everything's working according to the timeline you set. So if you're doing that yourself, now, yeah, you're saving on money and you might need to depending on the flip, because 20–30% could mean a lot of money, right? For a bigger rental. Or it could be a little bit, but maybe you just want to manage it yourself and have things done exactly the way you want. But that can take a lot of your time and it can cause you a lot of stress, even though it does save you money. So always account for that when you're looking at flips. One final thing I guess you would have to do once you're done all the work, you know, you've got all the renos done, is actually sell the place. So when you're selling the place, you have to make sure it's up to standard. It needs to be staged, marketed, and it needs to be up to par with whatever is going on in that market. So if there's another high-end house, you got to make sure you're meeting that same quality of work and you're reaching the same level in order to get that high premium price that people are going to pay for this. So you got to make sure you look into what that looks like before you even get into the place, right? Because you got to make sure the rentals are done up to that standard, the staging's done up to that standard, and it just meets that quality. So now that we talked about all of that, let's address the risks and challenges with flipping. So there's a couple of things that could go wrong, right? One, you could just pick up a bad deal right from the get-go because you don't know your numbers, you don't know the market, you picked up the wrong place, and you're doomed right from the get-go. The other thing is let's say you even pick up a good deal. If you just miscalculate the rental costs, now you could have cost overruns which are like crazy and they don't make your deal work anymore. I mean, it's not the worst thing, right? Like maybe if there's enough room for profitability, maybe it'll reduce your profitability, but again, like it's not really the greatest thing, right? If that happens. The next thing is the actual selling part. So like I was talking about earlier, if you get a property and you picked the wrong area and you renovated it up to a certain standard that is not required in that area, so there's no demand for it. So there's no demand for that product you just created, because that's essentially what you're doing when you're flipping a property. You're creating a higher end product than most of the properties in that area. But if no one needs it, no one's gonna buy it, right? So these are the risks that could come, I guess, with flipping and things you need to look out for. Of course, like it might be worth it, right, in the long run to go through these challenges, but not if it's gonna cost you like all the money you have. So just be very careful. So you might be wondering why everyone isn't flipping and why a lot of investors like myself, we rather choose not to flip for the most part. See, the thing is, it makes more sense to keep really good assets. I mean, not every asset class, like a single family home might not be ideal for an investor. We might want more units, but we rather invest our money into things that we can keep that grow. So we put the same money in, keep the asset, get passive income over time, and as it grows and the rents increase and the mortgage gets paid down, our wealth keeps increasing. So it's not just like a one-off thing, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is flipping, obviously like you dispose of the asset right when you're done, but with buying and hold, you actually have the ability to make mistakes and learn over time, and you can afford to do it because you're not planning on taking the profits from a sale, right? So you can afford to make some mistakes because you're gonna keep the property, you're gonna hold on to it for a long time, and you know, everyone knows like over time, through appreciation, mortgage pay down, cash flow, like those mistakes pay for themselves and everything works out. And it's just a better experience because if you're getting into buy and holds first, you have that, I guess, capacity to learn, and over time you're going to be able to grow and get enough knowledge where you could actually do flips a lot easier because you have more knowledge, you've accumulated more resources over your time of buying and holding, you got to know more people, you understand rentals better, you understand properties, demographics of the area where you're maybe gonna possibly flip in the future, you understand those things better. So it gives you a lot more opportunity to learn and grow rather than just make a quick sale, right? So you might be asking, like, is it worth flipping my first deal, like getting my first deal, and that just needs to be a flip rather than a buy and hold? It's not really the best idea, because all the things I described, the challenges, the different factors that go into this, usually, like, even people with some level of experience are gonna have a hard time, and you can easily lose money, and you don't wanna do that on your first deal and just lose your shirt. So I would say be very careful, be extremely diligent. If you really, really, really wanna do it, that is, right? Then take extra precautions and really, I would say, consult with people that are doing it, or just partner with someone that's already doing it, and you can maybe, you know, fund their deal for them and just kind of learn under them. Because if you go in yourself and you don't have any experience, any resources, you might end up just like losing a lot of money, and you may never want to do a deal again. So you might be wondering, what are some of the best flippers doing, and how are people flipping so many properties? Like, who are these people? How are they doing it? So I'm not one of them, but I know people that are doing this, and I know what it takes. So I wouldn't kid myself and think that it's easy. What I can tell you is that a lot of these people are spending a ton of money on finding off-market deals. So remember, the golden rule, buy under market value, right? Severely under market value. So sometimes these people are picking up properties at like 100, 200K under market value, but it's costing them about 5 figures, maybe 10, 15, 20 grand a month at least, to just find these properties. And they may never find a property for maybe 1 whole month. That's kind of what it takes to get to that point where you can get those deals. And once you get those deals, the thing is, these people, they have enough resources built up over time that they can get funding no problem, because people know they're flipping, people know that they've proven themselves. So they can get funding, they can get the deals, and they know what type of product they're looking for and what they're creating. They've built out a system. So it takes money, experience, all of that, resources, you name it, and you can get to that level and you can make a lot of money. But again, it's not something that's really meant, I would say, for beginners. If you really want to flip, go for it, do your due diligence. Like I said, try to partner with someone, but I would recommend instead go for buy and holds. Right now, we're into April of 2022. The market has slowed down. A lot of buyers have been waiting around for an opportunity. Right now is the opportunity, I would say. So get into buy and holds first. Get your resources, your experience, connect with more people. And then if you really want to flip down the line, you always can. But that would be my advice to someone that's starting out.